Starting a Sega Master System collection can be a bit tough. The most common and cheap games for the console are usually the system's weakest titles and can leave a bad first impression. So I wanted to put together a list of 5 good Master System titles that have kept me entertained over the past 15 years and won't break the bank. First up is Enduro Racer. In the arcades and most home ports, this was a first-person line-scrolling racer. Sega changed the formula up completely for the Master System version, opting for an isometric-style racer instead. The game is better for it and offers a fairly unique racing experience. The goal is to maneuver around obstacles, launch over ramps, and pass opponents. Pressing down right before a jump will allow you to fly over the ramps without losing speed and is necessary for success. At the end of each race, the game will tally up how many opponents you've passed and award you points. These points can be used for temporary upgrades, but I always save them for the items, which repairs damage. In the Japanese version of this game, there are 10 unique tracks, but the game was halved to save ROM space and money for the US release, and the 5 stages are simply repeated a second time. If you aren't quick enough, you'll run out of time and get a game over. However, after you master the controls and the tracks, winning shouldn't be too difficult, and the game instead becomes about beating your previous time. It's a ton of fun and one of the cheaper carts available for the Master System, and easily one of my favorites. Cloudmaster is a horizontal shmup featuring a very unique take on the genre, at least at the time. Rather than a ship, you control a guy floating on a cloud. The enemies range from somewhat normal to totally off the wall. This is probably the most redeeming quality of the game, just the sheer oddness of it all. The gameplay is actually fairly vanilla, but still enjoyable. The upgrade path is linear but frequent and rewards memorization with some serious firepower. Most bullets and projectiles on the screen are rather large, making it pretty easy to distinguish what is going on. The graphics and sound are a step above the average for the Master System, and combined with the fun gameplay, Cloudmaster is a pretty easy game to recommend. Teddy Boy was one of the few titles released on the Sega card format, but is also available as a normal cartridge. The game looks and sounds rather primitive, but the gameplay is super fast-paced and is a ton of fun. Basically, your goal is simply to clear all of the enemies off the playfield. The playfield is rather small and loops endlessly, vertically and horizontally. Therefore, if an enemy is on your right, you can move left and run into him. After killing an enemy, it will turn into a small little ball. You must then grab it. Failing to do so will result in the ball then eating a chunk of time off the meter at the bottom of the screen. On top of that, standing in one spot will result in the floor actually disintegrating. This can be useful for creating new paths through the screen, or may hinder you if it was not intentional. The enemies spawn out of dice, and the number on the face of the die represents how many enemies are still left to spawn. Everything happens rather fast, and it can get frantic pretty quickly. Still, simplicity aside, this is a great little game that should appeal to most retro gamers. R-Type for the Master System is absolutely awesome. It is represented fairly well here, and it's actually pretty impressive considering the limited 8-bit hardware. The music is fantastic and remains my favorite on the Master System. The compositions are faithful to the arcade, and you'll hear plenty of sounds you didn't know the system was capable of making. R-Type is an iconic shmup and introduced a ton of features that would continue to influence the genre over the decade to follow. First, you can obtain a pod called the Force. You can connect this to the back of your ship, the front of your ship, or let it float on its own. Additionally, your weapon can be charged up to release a big blast rather than simply relying on rapid fire. Finally, the 3 weapons in the game are vastly different, shooting forward, diagonally, or hovering on the ground and ceiling. This Master System port is easier than most versions of the title, which makes it easier to learn, but make no mistake, this is an old school, hard as hell shmup. The game is actually what got me into the genre in the first place, so I always have an extra bit of nostalgia for it. That aside, this is easily one of the best games available for the Master System and is a must-own. Last but not least is Psycho Fox. This is a fairly comprehensive platformer with plenty of stages and a high level of polish. Your main attacks are jumping on enemies, but you can also punch them as well. Hidden throughout the levels are eggs, which may contain items, enemies, or a bird. This bird is essential as you can throw it, which will take out enemies. More importantly, it offers you a hit point. Without him, you die in just a single hit. Even cooler than the bird is the ability to switch characters at any time. They each have different speeds and jumping abilities, and it admittedly bears a striking resemblance to Super Mario Bros. 2. Psycho Fox has some pretty strange momentum, taking a touch too long to get up to speed, and then simply moving far too fast once you get going. It takes a while to get used to, but once you get past the learning curve, it works just fine. The graphics are pretty good here, and the music is much better than average. This is the most expensive title here, and it seems to climb up a few dollars with each passing year. Still, it's not crazy expensive, and in my opinion, another one of the highlights of the Master System's library. So there you have it. If you've never played a Sega Master System game before, or are just getting into the system, these 5 titles offer a great place to start, and shouldn't be too hard to track down.